All right, we've got plenty of questions to answer on this Friday edition of PFT Live, opening up the mailbag. And right out of the gates, our good friend A-Red Zimanalk, who's been asking questions for a decade now to PFT Live in its various forms. Who will be the biggest loser in this ongoing drama in Houston? The Texans or Deshaun Watson, Peter? We haven't talked about Deshaun Watson today. Obviously, things have changed dramatically since the last time you were on with me, and especially because it was a PFTPM, maybe even before any of the stuff hit the fan in Houston. Where do you think this currently stands by way of Watson or the Texans losing more in the long run?
They've all been napalmed, every single one in the organization. Look at the Texans as a football team, Mike. The Texans are an expansion team. They just signed about 900 people in free agency who nobody has ever heard of. And you look at what's going on with their team, and this is going to be, thank God for them that Jacksonville's in the division at least for one more year. Maybe they'll be able to win one of the games against Jacksonville. Who knows? But I guess I look at this, Mike, and say, this team really took a huge hit because of the disaffection, of what happened in essence with Deshaun Watson. But again, look, Deshaun Watson is in a significant amount of trouble, legally right now. Right now, it's only civil cases. Could it graduate to criminal cases? We'll see. But his reputation is, as we speak, he's the guy on the back of the horse who has fallen off the horse, and the horse just keeps running as the guy is just basically ridden along in the dirt. And so I kind of look at this and say everybody is lost. I don't know how to quantify who has lost more, but as of now, I think everybody is a giant loser in Houston.
And, Peter, one thing that I want to emphasize, to the extent that folks missed this earlier in the week, the possibility for criminal prosecution right now, I believe, is low because prosecutors typically don't like to take on cases that they think they have a good chance of losing. And it's difficult to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a case where you've got the testimony from one witness and you've got contradicting testimony from another witness. And even without that accused testifying, if he exercises his right against self-incrimination, the story of the accuser can often be sufficiently questioned and undermined to raise reasonable doubt. Doesn't take much to create reasonable doubt. Skilled defense lawyers can do that. But the problem for Watson is, even if there isn't enough now to proceed against him with a criminal charge that a prosecutor would feel good about resulting in a conviction, if these civil cases go forward, he's got a hell of a decision to make. Because if you take the fifth in the context of the civil case, which you have the right to do before the criminal cases are filed or resolved, while there's still the possibility of criminal jeopardy, you're going to lose the civil case. Think about it. The person who's accusing you gets on the witness stand, tells a story, and your response is to say, I invoke my right against self-incrimination. You're losing that case. Every one of those cases where you do that. Well, the other side of it is, if you allow yourself to be cross-examined by Tony Busby aggressively, twisted into knots because he's skilled at twisting people into knots, and you've never testified before, and you're in your mid-20s, and you have no idea where any of this is going, and the next thing you know, you've created a transcript that becomes a blueprint that a prosecutor can take and make his or her case easier. That's the problem. That's the ultimate dilemma Deshaun Watson faces, and that's why I've been saying, hey, the best move is have your reckoning. Make things right. Whatever it is that you did or didn't do, you've got 16 and up to 24 people who think you did something you shouldn't have done. Get everybody in a room, get a retired judge there to serve as a mediator, and work all this out. Because otherwise, Peter, this is going to hover over him, the Texans, and more importantly, the NFL for a year, year and a half, 2 years, and it's only going to make the NFL upset and create a bigger consequence for Watson on the back end. His best play, make this all go away. And I don't mean do it in a way that is unfair to the individuals. It has to take into account their concerns. It has to make them feel like they've had their day in court, and they have to be reasonably satisfied with the outcome as it relates to them.
Yeah, I think now, Mike, the more immediate question is, what do you do if you are a team? Maybe the Jets, maybe Miami, maybe Carolina. What do you do if you're a team that had legitimate interest in Deshaun Watson? There's absolutely nothing you can do. And so therefore, the reason why, in my opinion, that, look, the timing is never good for a case as sordid and ugly as this. But the reason why this timing is incredibly bad is because what's going to happen, I would say the three biggest candidates right now in order would be Carolina, Miami, and the New York Jets, in that order. Okay, and if that is the case, right, every one of those teams very well could move on from Deshaun Watson in the month of April. What happens if Mac Jones lasts till number 8, which he probably will, and if the Panthers, who've been really, disguising their interest in Mac Jones. Mike Tannenbaum, I had him on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he said he would bet me anything, some Starbucks thing. He bet me anything that Mac Jones does not get past number 8. And he was certain. He was just had absolute certainty about it. So, but all I'm saying is, if they take a quarterback at number 8, right? So then they're out of the race for Deshaun Watson. And similarly, if Tua Tagovailoa plays well this fall, they're out of the race for Deshaun Watson. And I think the Jets are a distant third, because I don't think they're going to trade for I didn't think they were going to trade for Deshaun Watson going into this. But take all of those things, and now where's the market? San Francisco, maybe. And what is somebody going to pay for a tarnished player like Deshaun Watson? And again, I say tarnished player, and there could be a way that none of these accusations are true. We simply don't know. But really, Mike, you've been involved in this from both sides, from the media side and the legal side. You know that no matter what happens, there is going to be a tarnish on Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and I think one way that you can begin to repair the damage is resolve the matters in a way that is satisfactory to the people who have the grievances that have been reduced to a civil complaint. But when we say make this go away, there's nothing nefarious there. It means resolve it, fix it, find a way to make those individuals happy, and then you move forward with your redemption. The redemption's going to come at some point. A redemption came for Mike Vick. A redemption will come. But part of getting your redemption is you've got to take your reckoning and pay your penance, whatever it may be. My concern for Deshaun Watson is the more he fights, the more he digs in, the longer this lasts, the worse it's going to be. And even if it does get resolved today, there's that question that an organization is going to have to ask. Do we do business with this individual from a PR standpoint? Everything's about PR as far as the NFL and its teams are concerned. Are we comfortable doing business with Deshaun Watson? Some teams, some cities, some states, it may be easier than others. These are all complicated decisions and questions that need to be resolved by the various teams. I just think that everyone is better off if Deshaun Watson recognizes that there's a problem that needs to be resolved and there's no magic wand he can wave to resolve it. It's not going to go away. And if he fights it, it's going to last a long time. And the best thing that he can do at this point is make it right for the individuals who are lining up with these complaints. And I know they're frustrated that they don't know who they are because they all file under the name Jane Doe. The complaints make it pretty clear, dates and times and places. You should be able to figure out who they are. And it's immaterial. Bring them all together. You'll find out who they are when you have your mediation session and you try to make it right with each one of them. To me, That's the best play, and that's the only way to have this cleared up before the 2021 season begins. And even then, Peter, he still may be suspended without pay for a certain number of games to start the year. But at least it's not going to be a situation where he's on paid leave for a whole year, like an Adrian Peterson or a Greg Hardy were in 2014. That's part of the problem here, and that's a great irony. He's never going to play for the Texans again. That's what John McClain says. Well, you know what? The only way he may get paid this year is to be on the Texans because he's on paid leave, and the Texans are paying him $10 million while all this other stuff keeps going. So this is a mess for everyone. And the sooner that the legal cases are resolved, the sooner it is a mess that is cleaned up for everyone.
Mike, can I just add one last thing to this? I think there is a great lesson to be learned. You mentioned Michael Vick, and Michael Vick basically found a second life in the NFL. He didn't find it in Atlanta, but he found it in Philadelphia. And he redeemed so much about himself with his work in this second life. But I will never, ever forget when he told me, when he got out of prison, and I wrote this for Sports Illustrated, that one of the things that haunted is too strong a word, but when he was sitting in Leavenworth, the Kansas prison, when he was sitting in Leavenworth, sent there as sentenced to dogfighting charges. When he was sitting there, one of the things that kept coming in his head is, how am I going to face Roger Goodell? How am I going to... I swore to Roger Goodell that these charges were trumped up. There was nothing to them. I never did this. I had nothing to do with dogfighting. How am I going to do this? And so that is something, honestly, that in my opinion, and look, I am not saying in any way that Deshaun Watson is guilty, but what I am saying is that if there are things that Deshaun Watson feels he is culpable in, the best thing that he could do right now, I believe, is exactly what you say. He's got to come clean, and he's got to talk about all of this stuff, either privately with his accusers, or, if he is absolutely convinced he's being ramrodded, and, you want the truth to come out, then I guess you fight it. But in my opinion, he's got to make sure that he doesn't say anything right now that he's truly going to regret later on.
The bottom line is he was engaged in activities that put him in a position to have these accusations made. And one of the defenses we've heard from him, what they believe is a silver bullet for lawsuit number 3, it's actually a boomerang because it shows that on his radar screen for these massages was the possibility of the massages becoming something more than that, which is the gist of the complaints that have been made against him. He just claims in one case it was consensual. It bolsters the other 15 who are saying that he was looking for something more than just a massage.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.